Let's bring in New York Republican Congressman Peter King. He's the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, and a Romney surrogate. It's nice to see you, sir. Thank you for talking with us. You just heard Hillary Clinton there saying she takes the blame. Mr. Giuliani yesterday told me that he believes that there is a cover-up underway. Well, what do you think? Is there some kind of cover-up?
Well, I give Secretary Clinton credit for taking responsibility, at which Joe Biden and President Obama would also take responsibility. I think the administration has a lot to explain. From the day this story broke back on September 11th, September 12th, they told misleading stories, confusing stories, contradictory stories. The reality is what they said the very first day, almost every word they said has been disproven. So we have to find out why. But more importantly, to me, the underlying foreign policy issue here is the president has been claiming that somehow Al-Qaeda has been decimated, that somehow he's been so successful in the Middle East and North Africa that we can turn toward the Pacific. The fact is, this attack showed that Al-Qaeda and its affiliates and its offshoots are still a powerful force against the United States, in some ways even more dangerous than before September 11th.
A lot has been made of what Susan Rice said on Meet the Press back on September 16th, and she said this: our current assessment is what happened in Benghazi was in fact initially a spontaneous reaction to what had transpired hours before in Cairo, almost a copycat of the demonstrations against our facility in Cairo, which were prompted, of course, by the video. So technically, she's saying that the video caused what happened in Cairo, but sort of linking it to what happened in Benghazi. Now she says this: in my September 16th Sunday show appearances, I was asked to provide the administration's latest understanding of what happened in Benghazi. In answering, I relied solely and squarely on the information the intelligence community provided to me and other senior U.S. officials, including through the daily intelligence briefings that present the latest reporting and analysis to policymakers. And she basically said this represents the best current assessment when she went on television. So she's saying it's not a cover-up. If there were mistakes, it's because the intelligence was flawed.
Yeah, I don't accept that. Ambassador Rice reports to the State Department. Even though she's ambassador to the UN, she's in the chain of command with the State Department. Did she take the time to talk to people who were in the consulate that night who said there was no demonstration? Did she take the time to check out all the traffic from within the State Department from the consulate back to Washington? The fact is, did she even check out the fact that there had been so many terrorist threats from that area, or that Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb and Ansar al-Sharia are such powerful forces in that region? Listen, if she had said, we don't have all the information yet, there's no precise intelligence, but we also know there's a lot of terrorist activity in that region, that would have been fine. She didn't mention terrorism. She left out Al-Qaeda and Ansar al-Sharia altogether. She clearly wanted to give the impression that this was a spontaneous result of the video that was shown, and that was misleading, and she should have known better. As ambassador to the UN, if she was out there, she was expected to give more than just a recap of what the intelligence people told her.
But you know,
otherwise,
the president said on 9/12 in his remarks at the Rose Garden, he said this: no act of terror will ever shake the resolve of this great nation, right? So he mentioned terror the first day after. It's not this is a terror attack, but he absolutely is talking about terror.
He barely mentioned it once. For the next week, even people like Jay Carney, the administration's line was this was not a terror attack. It had nothing to do with U.S. policy. It was not a terrorist attack. That was the theme and the narrative that they wanted to put out there, and that was wrong. And why were they doing it? Why did they do it? I think it was because it undercut the president's campaign promise or claim that Al-Qaeda had been decimated. And also, they did have the concern about whether or not they had provided enough security to that consulate. Now, listen, I don't really blame them for not having enough security. That's a mistake, or it's a judgment call that could have been wrong. What makes it worse is what they should have said the day after is, it looks as if there may not have been enough security. We're going to review all our security at consulates in dangerous areas throughout the world. But instead, they ignored it altogether. They ignored Al-Qaeda and Ansar al-Sharia altogether and tried to blame it all on this ridiculous video.
You're not saying a cover-up then, right? Because what Mr. Giuliani said yesterday was a cover-up, which to me seems to imply some kind of criminal activity. And you sound like you're saying it is a big, complete screw-up. I know you wanted to jump in.
Yeah. Congressman, can I just go back to your broader point? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, let me just, wait a minute. No, I am saying, no, I mean, we can define cover-up any way we want. I'm saying the administration has not told the truth, and they have spread a false narrative. Now, are you talking about a criminal cover-up? No. But I would say certainly they were concealing or holding back facts that would have undercut their position. They did not tell the truth to the American people.
Just to go back to you, Congressman Ron Brown, State of the National Journal, I want to go back to your broader point from your first answer. You were saying that with Osama bin Laden dead and all of the drone attacks on al-Qaeda leadership, you believe that al-Qaeda today may be a greater threat or a stronger force than they were before September 11th? Can you clarify that? Why do you feel that way?
Yes, certainly. And in fact, that is the consensus of most intelligence experts because of the fact that Al-Qaeda morphs. Going back 4 or 5 years ago, Al-Qaeda began to morph into Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. They also have affiliates like Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, and now Ansar and Al-Sharia, and also including people here in the United States. What they've done is they are now more under the radar screen, they're more spread out, and they're harder to define. It was great killing President bin Laden. I give President Obama credit for that, with bin Laden being killed. But having said that, he was one element because Al-Qaeda had shifted. It had shifted its emphasis from being a centralized force to being a diversified, diverse force, which is harder to track down. They're under the radar screen in many cases.
So you're saying they're a greater threat now than they were when President Obama took office?
They are a greater threat than they were back on September 11th because of the fact that they're much more spread out, the fact that there is active recruiting going on for people under the radar screen. And if you talk to intelligence experts, most will agree with that. That on September 11th and the immediate years afterwards, we know who they were. We had a general idea how to get them, and we were getting them one by one. And the culmination was when President Obama got bin Laden in May of 2011, whatever the year was, 2011. But the fact is, now it is spread out into many different groups, and that is why it is considered by most intelligence experts to be more dangerous now than it was then. And that's a story the president is not telling.
Peter King joining us this morning. Nice to see you, Congressman. Thank you for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
So that. Thank you.
You bet.